Hey folks, Mr. Novak here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the difference between literal and figurative language. You ever hear somebody use the word literally and then another person gets upset with the way they use it? They might say something like, "That is literally the best show I've ever seen in the entire universe." Literally, that's not true because you are using the word literally incorrectly when you say it that way. So let's talk about what literal language is and what figurative language is. So, today we're going to think about the language we experience when we read words on a page, right? Language is a lot like Russian nesting dolls.
I could say Thailand or something. I don't know what it is. It's beautiful. Oh my God! There's another doll in here. Hi, how are you? Look at this. There's a doll in here. Man, look at this thing here. Oh my God, there's another one. Look at this. Did you know that?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's Russian nesting doll. You want to have a seat when we start the meeting?
That's incredible. Look at that little doll. Oh my goodness, look at that.
Yeah.
It keeps going. It keeps going. There's more. There's more dolls in here.
No, they call them nesting dolls.
Did you know that? No, but they keep going. There's more dolls. You have one doll, you have another doll. Put this on top of this doll.
That's what they are.
I just got to see. Got to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, there's
You're
a lot.
kidding me.
Yeah. Okay, but why don't we start the meeting? Maybe you should
You're not
touch
going to tell
it.
me that goes again.
What's that?
Guys, there's another one. Well, where can I pick one of these up?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm
Want
gonna
to sit down? We can get going.
Okay. I'm going to jump in here and do this.
So, language is like Russian nesting dolls because there's a lot of things going on inside of bigger things. A lot of little things going on inside of bigger things, right? So when we think about different types of figurative language, we'll see this. Well, we see this, for example, when there are words in a sentence, there are letters in a word, right? Lots of little things going on inside of bigger things. So we're going to talk about words on a page and how they could be either literal or figurative. And another word that we use for a word is really the idea of text, right? I could do a whole presentation about what text is because text means a lot of things for a lot of people. For students in high school English class, it can refer to words on the written page, digital or physical. Text is the delivery tool of the author's message and ideas, right? So text is how the author is bringing you information in words on a page. And when we look at text on a page in an English class, we're really concerned with thinking about, is this text literal or is it figurative? And I'm going to talk about the distinctions between these and give you some examples of both, and also talk about where they kind of overlap a little bit. Let's get started. So literal language. Literal language means exactly what it says, right? Well, that's what Webster's dictionary says. So when you're thinking of literal language, a rose is a physical flower. That's it. It means nothing else. But we know the word rose has been used as a figure of speech in other examples, right? Life would be boring if we only had literal language. If we only used literal language, for example, when students call one another hot, we'd be forced to think about the body temperature of the person being described. We would miss the opportunity to use hot as a figure of speech that carries the meaning of beauty or attractiveness. That's just lame, folks, right? Figurative language is hardwired into what we do as an animal. We as an animal do figurative language, and you know how to understand it without me even teaching you about it. So according to Kathleen Warner and Ralph Rausch, who wrote this book here that I'm going to refer to a lot, figurative language is a type of language that varies from the norms of literal language, also known as the ornaments of language. Figurative language does not mean exactly what it says, but instead forces the reader to make an imaginative leap in order to comprehend an author's point. It usually involves a comparison between two things that may not, at first, seem to relate to one another. In a simile, for example, an author may compare a person to an animal. He ran like a hare down the street. And that's a figurative way to describe the man running. And he ran very quickly down the street is the literal way to describe him. Figurative language facilitates understanding because it relates something unfamiliar to something that is familiar. We have figurative language in our DNA. This is the place in language that English classes live, breathe, and strive. Of course, I don't mean that literally. There are many varieties of figurative language. Look at all those. And you see how I've organized this. This is organized, again, thinking of those Russian nesting dolls. There's figurative language within figurative language. Let's kind of dig in a little bit. So we know lots of types of figurative language. Personification, for example, is a figure of speech in which human characteristics are put upon animals, plants, and inanimate objects. We might talk about a tree that is weeping or crying in the wind, right? Trees don't literally cry. We personify that. Onomatopoeia, that's where we are using the sounds of the thing that the word describes in the actual word. So bam is a word and it sounds like the thing it is. Hyperbole, oh, this is one of my favorites, right? Hyperbole, here's a great example. Everybody's going to the party, Mom. Literally, everybody's not going to the party. I'm not going to that party, Mom. Hyperbole is when we exaggerate for a rhetoric effect. Idiom, oh, all language is idiomatic. Idioms are these little packets of expressions that convey meaning that literally have nothing to do with what they mean. So for example, catch a cold. I'm literally catching nothing when I catch a cold. Instead, I am becoming ill with a virus or a disease, right? Allusion. This is a really popular one. Allusion is what we find in music a lot. Allusion is in literature. Allusion is when one text refers to another text or a historical event, right? This is seen a lot in music, especially hip hop. Connotations, right? There's connotations and denotations. Connotations are a meaning that give an example of what a word kind of feels like. It's not exactly what it really means. It is just a feeling of that, right? So for example, mother literally is the thing that births offspring, right? But mother also has this connotation of warmth and love and lovingness. That word is packed with a lot of meaning that is both literal and figurative. The denotation of mother, of course, again, is a mother is someone who births offspring, right? Imagery is another one of these words like denotation and connotation that kind of is like right there in the middle. Imagery is the making of pictures in words, the pictorial quality of a literary work achieved through a collection of images. In a broader sense, imagery is often used as synonymous with a figure of speech or figurative language, simile, metaphor, symbol. Imagery appeals to the sense of taste, smell, hearing, and touch, and to internal feelings, as well as to the sense of sight. And that's how imagery kind of takes on this metaphoric meaning, right? Imagery is more than just visual. Imagery is also things like scent that is described in words. And imagery is one of these types of metaphors, right? Metaphors are a big classification of literal language. According to Warner and Rausch, a metaphor is a figure of speech that makes a comparison between two unlike things without using words like I, like, or as. An extended metaphor is a sustained comparison in which parts or all of the poems consist of a series of related metaphors. That's an example of a metaphor, right? So here's an example of a metaphor. On the basketball court, he's a machine. Literally, he's not a machine. He's an organism. But the comparison makes him seem like someone who gets the job done with precision and accuracy on the basketball court, right? That's how a machine is being compared to a person. They're not literally the same thing. They are metaphorically compared. To me, there is more to the story when it comes to metaphors. Metaphors, to me, are larger categories of figurative language. Other forms of figurative language resemble metaphors. There are many types of metaphors. There's simile, right? Simile is just a metaphor that uses like or as. If I say the student is as honest as snow, what do I mean? Can honesty be snow? No. Symbol is another type of metaphor. Symbols are really one of the most important ones that we talk about in an English class. According to Kathleen and Ralph, a symbol is a person, object, image, or word or an event that invokes a range of additional meaning beyond the usual, more abstract than its literal significance. Symbols are educational devices for evoking complex ideas without having to resort to painstaking explanations that would make a story more like an essay than an experience, right? Symbols are these things that pop up in literature, and they're usually a thing or a person, but they represent something larger than that, right? Much bigger. And we see them come back and again in the story. So for example, what do you think when I say stars and stripes? You probably think of the stars and stripes on the US flag. There are literally stars and stripes on that flag, right? But what do those stars and stripes symbolize? They symbolize these bigger ideas of the 13 colonies and the 50 states, right? An extended metaphor is a metaphor or comparison that is sustained throughout the literature. So we see that same objects, that same person, meaning that same other idea again and again and again. Allegory is a cool type of metaphor. Allegory is where everything in the story has meaning. Everything has a totally different meaning. The story is a narrative, but the characters, the setting, the events, all of these other parts have some other unified meaning that kind of ties the whole piece together and conveys an idea through all those meanings. So again, metaphor, there are different types of metaphors. And again, this is how language is like a nesting doll. Within metaphors, there are these subtypes of metaphors. Another kind of literary device that has lots of smaller devices within it is irony, right? In the broadest sense, the recognition of incongruity is what irony is. It's a difference between reality, what is, and what appears to be. Irony is this phenomenon where the thing that's there is not at all what it is. It's almost the exact opposite of that, right? So sarcasm is a type of irony, right? When I say to you, nice shirt, and I'm being sarcastic, I don't mean you have a nice shirt. I mean the exact opposite. The little the coloring of sarcasm, the way we think about sarcasm, though, is that it's actually used to hurt or insult people, right? Sarcasm is a type of irony that is insulting. Parody. Weird Al does parodies, right? Weird Al it looks like he is, praising Michael Jackson when he did Eat It, but he's really mocking it, right? And there's a twist on it where he's mocking the type of piece that it is. So it is what it is, but no, it's actually not what it is. It's not beat it, it's eat it. So there's just a little brief primer on what the difference between literal and figurative language is. I'm going to put in this YouTube video a link to this Prezi so you could play around with and look at this and look at all those different types of figurative language. Create your own, read what you see and identify it, right? That's what we do in an English class. I hope you found this video helpful.